Hey there, folks. I'm Jake, and I'm about to share a story that's been a real roller coaster ride, filled with love, betrayal, family drama, and ultimately, self-discovery and standing up for what's right. It all began around 7 years ago when I was a 25-year-old mechanical engineer, fresh out of the University of Nebraska. I met Amber, who was in the business program, at a campus coffee shop. She spilled her latte on my thermodynamics textbook, and that accidental encounter led to a 3-hour conversation about everything from our career dreams to our favorite childhood cartoons. We dated for 3 years and got married right after graduation, thinking we had our whole lives planned out. My family absolutely adored Amber. My parents, Patricia and Dennis, treated her like the daughter they never had. My dad, a woodworking enthusiast, would spend hours showing her his workshop, and my mom would take her shopping and include her in all family events. My sister Bailey, who was a bit younger, looked up to Amber like a role model, constantly seeking her fashion and career advice. For the first few years of our marriage, things seemed pretty normal. We had a small apartment with a leaky faucet I kept meaning to fix, matching coffee mugs Amber picked out, and a Sunday morning routine of hitting the farmer's market. I was focused on building my career at a manufacturing plant, putting in long hours but earning a decent living. Amber was in pharmaceutical sales, traveling frequently for conferences and making good commissions when she closed deals. However, the warning signs were there if I'd been paying closer attention. Amber's business trips started getting longer and more frequent. She came home exhausted and uninterested in talking about her week. She began password protecting her phone and laptop, claiming it was for client confidentiality. Our conversations became more transactional, revolving around bills, groceries, and household chores. I chalked it up to her high-stress job in the cutthroat world of pharmaceutical sales. Then, one fateful day, everything came crashing down. I had a site inspection at the manufacturing plant that got canceled due to equipment failure. I came home early, around 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I texted Amber to let her know I was coming home and asked if she wanted me to grab takeout. She didn't respond, which wasn't unusual, as she was probably in meetings. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar BMW. I thought it was a neighbor's guest. But when I walked into our bedroom, I found Amber and her regional sales manager, Bradley, in a very compromising position. I was stunned. Time seemed to both slow down and speed up. I noticed stupid details like Bradley's expensive suit jacket on our chair, Amber's clothes in a trail from the door, and the lunch I'd packed for her that morning sitting unopened on the nightstand. I didn't yell or break things, although a part of me wanted to. I just stood there, processing the fact that my 7-year marriage had apparently been a lie. Bradley scrambled to put on his pants, mumbling something about a misunderstanding, and Amber stared at me with a deer-in-headlights look that quickly turned calculating. I told Bradley to get out, and he practically ran out of the apartment. Amber started crying, saying she wanted to explain, but I told her there was nothing to explain. I grabbed my keys and left, driving straight to my buddy Colin's place. Colin, bless him, didn't ask any questions at first. He just opened the door, saw the look on my face, and said, "Come in, I'll order food." I sat on his couch for hours, not talking, just staring at the TV without really seeing it. Around midnight, I finally told him what happened. He listened without interrupting and offered no platitudes. He just said I could stay as long as I needed. The next day, I filed for divorce. I went to a family law office and told the lawyer, Patricia, that I wanted it over as fast as possible. Nebraska is a no-fault state, but the adultery still mattered to me. I was willing to split everything 50-50ths just to be free of Amber. Patricia warned me to document everything because people can get vindictive during divorces. And boy, was she right. Amber launched a campaign of destruction. She took control of the narrative, spreading lies about me being emotionally abusive, controlling, and jealous. She showed my family texts I'd sent her, normal texts asking where she was and if she was okay, but twisted them to make me look like a monster. My family believed her without even asking for my side of the story. My mom called me, her voice cold and disappointed. She said she couldn't believe I'd treated Amber that way. When I tried to explain, she cut me off, saying Amber had already told them everything. My dad showed up at Colin's, telling me I needed to apologize to Amber and work on myself to save the marriage. When I told him about the affair, he said I must have driven her to it. Bailey was the worst. She sent me a long text, saying how disappointed she was in me and blocking my number. I tried reaching out to extended family, but they'd all already heard Amber's version of the story. Within 2 weeks, my entire family had cut me off. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Amber's lawyer tried to paint me as financially controlling, emotionally unstable, and potentially dangerous. But Patricia was a pro. She saw through all of Amber's tricks. Every unreasonable demand was just a ploy to make me react and seem volatile. I stayed calm through all the depositions, mediations, and ridiculous demands. When Amber's lawyer claimed I'd hidden marital assets, I produced 5 years of bank statements. When they suggested I'd threatened Amber, I provided email records showing I'd only communicated through lawyers after moving out. In the end, we've got a 50-50th split of marital assets. I kept my truck and some savings, and we had to sell the house. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I got some satisfying news. Amber got fired. Turns out Bradley was married, and when his wife found out about the affair, she made some calls to HR. Company policy prohibited relationships between managers and direct reports, so both of them were terminated. I also heard that their relationship imploded within 6 months. But at the time, it was cold comfort. I was alone in a studio apartment, estranged from my family, eating frozen dinners, and trying to figure out what had happened to my life. Colin was the only one who stuck by me. Most of our mutual friends either sided with Amber or just disappeared because divorce made things awkward. But Colin showed up every week with takeout, never pushing me to talk, just being there. He said my family would come around, but as the months passed, I started to accept that they might not. I decided to focus on myself. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects and volunteering for the complicated assignments nobody else wanted. My hard work paid off, and I got promoted to senior engineer and then to project lead. I also started hitting the gym hard. I needed an outlet for all the anger and hurt I was carrying. I lost 30 pounds of divorce weight and put on muscle. I moved out of the studio into a decent 2-bedroom condo. I furnished it with things I actually liked, not the beige, compromise-filled stuff Amber had insisted on. I got a German Shepherd named Rex, who became my loyal companion. Then, I met Kayla. We met at a project kickoff meeting. She was the new procurement specialist, and I was the engineering lead. In the meeting, she called out a vendor for padding their estimates by 30% and backed it up with competitive bids she'd researched in advance. I was impressed. After the meeting, we got to talking about supply chain, logistics, and all the mess that was our company's procurement system. We ended up in the conference room for 2 hours, sketching out workflow improvements on the whiteboard. Kayla was nothing like Amber. She didn't play games, didn't need constant validation, and said what she meant. We took things slow. I was gun-shy about relationships after my divorce, and she'd been through her own bad breakup. Our first date was coffee, the second was a project car show where she got to see my Mustang restoration project, and the third was her cooking dinner at her place while I helped prep vegetables. I told her about my first marriage, and she listened without judgment, saying I deserved better. After a year, we moved in together. Kayla had a house in a quiet neighborhood with a big garage for my car projects and a yard for Rex. The house needed some work, but we spent weekends fixing it up, turning it into a home. Then, last year, Kayla got pregnant. We were both excited. The pregnancy was smooth, and we took birthing classes, read books, and argued about names. Oliver Jacob was born on a Tuesday morning, and holding him for the first time was an indescribable feeling. 2 weeks after Oliver was born, my mom called. She said they'd heard about the baby and wanted to meet him. She didn't apologize for cutting me off. She just said they were family, and a new baby was a fresh start. I asked her how they heard, and she said Bailey saw pictures on social media, probably posted by Colin. I told her I'd think about it. Then, Bailey texted me. She said she wanted to be part of Oliver's life as his aunt. She also mentioned that she was still friends with Amber and thought it would be good if we could all move past the drama and get together. She even said Amber would love to meet Oliver. I showed the text to Kayla, and she was immediately against it. She said they hadn't learned anything and still thought Amber was the victim. I was torn. A part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell, but another part of me thought maybe they'd changed. I decided to give them a chance. I invited them over on a Sunday. Kayla set up the living room to keep things casual and minimize stress. Oliver would be in his bouncer within our sight, but not immediately accessible to them. At 2:03 p.m., their car pulled into the driveway. I watched my parents and sister get out. My mom had aged, my dad moved slower, and Bailey looked different, more professional. They stood outside for a moment, conferring, and then my dad pulled out a beautifully crafted wooden rocking horse from the back seat. I opened the door, and they filed into the living room. I introduced Kayla, and she was polite but guarded. We all sat down, and it was incredibly awkward. My mom's eyes immediately went to Oliver, and I could see the eagerness to scoop him up. My dad set down the rocking horse, saying he made it for Oliver. My mom started by saying they'd missed me, and the past 3 years had been difficult for everyone. I asked what mistakes I'd made, and Bailey said communication could have been better on all sides. I reminded them that I'd tried to communicate, but they'd blocked me. My mom said I was going through a difficult time and they thought I needed to calm down. I told them I caught Amber cheating, and that was a normal reaction. Then my mom said Amber had an explanation, that I'd been emotionally checked out and pushed her to it. Kayla stepped forward and said they should leave. They protested, saying they hadn't even held the baby. I told them they didn't want to apologize. They just wanted to play grandparents without acknowledging how badly they treated me. My dad said they were making an effort, but I said making an effort would have been believing me 3 years ago. My mom started crying, saying I was being cruel and they were trying to heal the family. I told her they broke it and didn't get to decide how it was fixed. Bailey said I was being unreasonable and should think about Oliver having a full family. I said I wanted Oliver to have people who would show up for him, not people who would abandon him like they did me. Outside, it started to rain. I opened the door and told them to leave. They stood there in shock, not believing this was happening. My dad said I was making a mistake, but I said they made the mistake 3 years ago. They finally left, getting soaked in the rain. I watched them drive away, and I felt a sense of relief. I realized I didn't need that toxic part of my family. Oliver would have a great life with Kayla's family, Colin, and our chosen family. And that was more than enough. So, that's my story. It's been a long and bumpy road, but I've come out stronger on the other side. And if you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories like this one.